Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thanks so much for coming. We love the traffic as it pulls on by. Today is not only informative but educational, so we appreciate the work taking with us. Sorry for those of you who are joining us by the web conference. I'm sorry the audio is not good. We'll do the best we can for you, but hopefully it's going to work out. So we're here today. We're here to talk about next generation 911 for the state of Kansas. There's some incredible things happening. Probably most of them you're not real familiar with, which we want to share with you today. And first of all, I want to thank very much Angela Murphy. Is Angela here yet or not? Anybody know? Okay, Great to give her a hand. Angela's here, but she's shy. Angela, thank you for arranging these facilities for us and putting all that together. We really do appreciate it. I want to thank Allen County Community College for hosting this for us. That's a real blessing for us. So we really appreciate that. Thank Eileen for pulling together some of the logistics and the lunch. Food's the most important thing that we have because we live without NG911, not food. And also, Jessica, thank you so much for putting together the intents and so forth. So if you give all these people a big round of applause. So guys that are joining by web conference can hear us okay. We'll do the best we can on the audio. Sure. I'll do the mouse. Okay, I think that works. Okay, here's what I'm going to do today. First of all, I'm going to give you a real high-level overview of next gen 911 for this location. I'll give a little bit of an overview. Scott Eber, probably if you know Scott, but if you don't, you know he's our liaison. He's out in the field meeting all the people. The stakeholders, as we call them, for NG911. So if you Scott, you will. But he's a real important person on the team because he's a relationship to folks like yourselves that are out in the field. Ken Nelson, who's our guru on the GIS program and heads it all up, he's going to talk to you a little bit about that. A series of mini seminars that Sarah Lynn and Joe's going to give us an update on what AOS is doing and where we are in the overall program for GIS data remediation. About that. Then at lunch, I wrote the things about polling. Okay, you'll find out this is an award-winning company that's at our lunch today, so we're excited about that. And Sherry's got some, Sherry Massey's got some really neat tutorials for us that we're going to have. We'll take a little bit of break in there. I hope you'll stay for the whole thing because after the break we have important material to cover. You'll want to hang around for that. I'll close with some thoughts and send you on your way. Get you back home as soon as we can. that pretty good? Okay. One important, by the way, I remember all that. Whatever. Why important? Well, first of all, you need to know, at a high level, this is what NG911 looks like for the state of Kansas. We've already done the first two things. We've strategy, we've done the planning, we've done the preliminary design, all that's been put together, and the next big step for us is called infrastructure. That's NG911 is going to be right out. We have to build that all up. Completely different from what we're using today in 911. This is a huge effort. On top of that, the GIS data, as you may or may not know, that's critical to running calls. So after we get the infrastructure in place, that's a platform, that the IT platform, if you will, that all this runs on, at the place, then the GIS and the IT architecture are going to be on top of that, and that's going to bring it to completion. Then, so how big this is, this right here is going to be somewhere around $10 million. And that's going to be awarded in the next couple of months. So we're getting very close to a stat effort. As I mentioned, Ken and his team has already started with GIS. That's going to be at least $3 million. Talking about a huge investment on the part of the state of Kansas. What is that? Simple. What we have today is there forever. 911 has been great, but we have to move to the next generation of 911. The government is already steering us in that direction. They're not dating it, but it'll come. So it's going to be important for us to be on the leading edge. There are some other states, a few states, in front of us, and the states behind them, like being out on the front end, because I think Kansas deserves that, first of all, for our citizens, for public safety. I also think Kansas can be a leader in the United States of America, and we're doing it. It's a little bit about the program and why it's important. I'm going to share with you a little bit about why it's important. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming this morning. A few minutes going through a few slides related to GIS, and then the rest of the GIS related to NG911. We'll go into a lot more detail when that's part of the agenda today, but simply put, the next generation of 911 services relies on GIS data, moving away from MSAG and team listings, and relying on GIS data to effectively route calls. So we need GIS data, but for the ability to route those calls depends on that data being standardized across jurisdictions. Just doing that for one PSAP, it's being done across all PSAPs across the entire state. So standardized and accurate. Knowing files built for just a thematic mapping purpose, to layer it on a map, to be, put a call or something like that. It needs to be built and needs to be maintained because it supports the service. So standardized across the state and maintained. So under this type of, and the GIS data really for infrastructure, just utility, as opposed to a lot of uses for GIS data in the past, where it really was supporting data more for thematic mapping purposes. So that's the most simple, but that's the main purpose of why it's so important. So vision really is pretty simple, but it's pretty massive in scope. This is the largest project I've ever involved in. I think it's related to with the investment in the network, the infrastructure, and once this thing is all complete and in things go into 2016 and beyond, this is an IT project ever done. It touches from all the way through the local jurisdictions. It's massive IT investment, it's database development, network and network infrastructure, all the way to get database development, data maintenance, orthoimagery. So really it involves lots of different people, lots of different sectors, different matter experts. But from the GIS perspective, we really need to build a base that's statewide, every county, every PSAP, a consistent common set of layers, road address points, versus zones and boundaries. We maintain that will vary based on county. You know, some may have changes on a weekly basis, some may be about 6 months, but that currency will really depend on how often we have on the ground, and that's authoritative, accurate, reliable. In the column has to be based on this data, so it doesn't get really and the standards that have been developed and approved through 911 by our GIS. So three or a fourth process. I think we're about this, but we're doing gap analysis projects. We broke down into projects A, B, and C. So the first step, that you probably heard from Jeff, kind of heard from AOS, is our gap analysis project. So going out, taking that data, providing that data, so compare the current GIS data to new N911 data. It's really to determine errors so much as to determine if we have our standards in place for this new system. Well, yeah, what needs to change to make sure it will work with this new system. For the analysis report, and then into data remediation, and that remediation is done by the local jurisdiction or by a vendor. And the vendors here in alphabetical order, and the reason those 5 are there is because they responded to the original RFP that went out on September 20th last year. So that was one of the requirements, that if you wanted to be part of some of this work, you had to respond to RFP. So none of this now and give them this work, you had to respond back to your last August, September. So yeah, to gap analysis report, we'll go into a lot more detail on that. Remediate data, bring it up to standard, and have a similar set of checks, again done by AOS, to ensure that those issues were addressed and that data does meet standard. And that was really the 3 process that was envisioned as part of the overall GIS. Probably and the fourth is just support. It is built. It really can't be just shelf. It has to be ready to use. You basically support and I agree with that one, but Randall was talking about it at different stages. The data sit there for 12 months and get stale. Maintenance is a very big part of this as well. As we formed a GIS subcommittee for the 911 Council, we're actually a subcommittee at the council. So we're a couple layers of the council administrative structure. But we get teams, several of which are here today. I have a chart here in just a minute. We work on a variety of things. This committee put together the data model with a lot of effort and leadership from Sherry May. Over RFIs and RFPs, so we put out the RFP for orthoimaging, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. We with the different service providers, we have regular calls with AOS, with Jessica and her team. A lot of the different issues surrounding this whole project, we have a good set of GIS experts on our subcommittee. So we work with Randall, who's here today, and Scott Eckler, and that was also from the DASC office is on there, and then Gonzalez, who's here today, from Kate, and also the rest of the representation. Here, so we wanted a good set of representation from county government, and Sarah Lynn Hayes, GIS manager at Mid-American Regional Council. They do lot of the data aggregation for the 911 system. They're essentially doing the same project for the 8 region, so we wanted their expertise on the team as well. Statewide ortho imagery project. I know there's been a lot of interest in that. We had a lot of good bids, but one of the requirements there that was pretty tough at the time, we wanted imagery that could be used within the data process. Is ongoing right now in Region 1. Will begin soon in Region 2. A few counties have already come through that remediation phase. We're going through the QA, and Jessica will talk about the work they're doing there. There were a couple of providers that a lot of course, to go collect the imagery. But Certex was the provider we chose. They can meet the timeline to be that as each of the 6 regions goes into nation, we would have imagery there to support it. So this in the next week, you will have access to the imagery. The time there is a bit variable. We're going to have access to the web services first that they publish, and then we're taking delivery of the GIS and the SID files. Approximately statewide, 1-foot pixel, now color ortho product. That was, again, is GIS, Mr. SID, and web service. So we think there'll be a lot of interest in the web service, just being able to plug that in your GIS software and use that actually with raw data. But with raw data in 2 different formats that we'll be able to ship out to people who use that. The is licensed. Now we can't put it out in the public domain. But the license does allow just about every use that we imagine as far as every state, AC, county government, municipal government, of course. Or any firm doing work on behalf of one of these organizations. So any of the remediation vendors, or if Dakota County government were to hire a vendor to do some work for them, or pay to hire some engineering firm that need access to the imagery, that's allowed. The one thing we can't do with it is put it out in the public. To meet the timeline of the imagery that was one thing we need to live with. So we'll machine information out on the Kansas911.org website, and the staff website, access to it. And we'll probably build a simple registration form just so we know who's requested it and how to follow up with it. Our copy or the pixel from GeoTip or Mr. Sid, if you want access to the web of it and how to support that request. There's also a webinar with Certex this Friday 1 p.m. Set out, I think last week, so most should have received that. If you haven't, probably myself, whatever it is, you get your email, send that out to you if you want to balance that, open anyone that wants to go to that, and then so we'll get information out on our various websites. Once we nail Certex, we just had our kickoff meeting with them on Monday afternoon as far as how what. So it's all relatively new to us, but we're working quickly to get that out to people, and especially those who are using the data or the imagery to help remediate the data.
Any other questions? Access to Alan, takeaways from students. That's very important with NG911. This information data is wrong. That emergency may end up somewhere. That's not so. It's just super critical, and we'll hear more about that. Sarah Lynn is not only on the GIS subcommittee, but you're also, for Mark, you're the GIS manager, right?
Well, I'm technically the 911 manager, but I do oversee our mapping projects for 911.
She does everything.
As I said, I'm Sarah Lynn. Working in emergency services. A lot of things I can do, right? So here today we're going to talk about databases. And the Master Street Address Guide, also known as the MSAG, is really the backbone that often people don't realize it even exists, but it's really important. And not having it in place can cause not route properly, your teaching information is not displayed properly, a lot of different things. So, now since 911 started, but they're really kind of going to transition to something else over time, and especially with this next generation 911. And one of the reasons it's so important for us to talk about it is we've maintained separate databases and separate systems for so long, but the two have to be in sync in order for them to work for next generation 911. So we'll into it a little bit more, or actually, and hopefully it'll start making sense. Before today is a somewhat casual and formal. If at any time I give an acronym or say something that doesn't make sense or you haven't heard it before, please, because you're probably not the only one. And in our industry, we have a lot of terminology, and everything is, some more one where I am, but maybe different where you are. So if it's not quite the same, please let me know. Let's talk through it. I'll be here from other people in the group. You're doing it. If you're not doing it, again, it's really important. So we need to learn about it, figure out what we need to do. It's often kind of one of those things that you need to ignore. The time comes that it kind of blows up in your face, and you have to focus on it. Okay, so as Randy mentioned, I work for Mid-America Regional Council, also known as MARC, and we coordinate 911 services for a new kind of region, kids and surrounding. But before I worked in the county dispatch center, where it was just we did all the things. We did end dispatching everything. We were one-stop shop for everything. So the understanding starting in a county all the way to having a system now that we've worked really hard the last 10 years to have our addresses and our maps and everything like that. So the results of it is more than now. I'd like we positioned ourselves in a much better place to be moving for next generation. Okay, so what is the impact? I'm telling you right now, it's a good thing this presentation isn't after lunch because it can be a boring topic, so I'll try and not bore you to death. I noticed some kind of actors and I have a little bit of voice noisy, and so if I need to turn it down, just let me know. Okay, what is the map? This is the backbone to 911, right? But it's basically a tabular listing, right? Simplify it. It's a tabular listing of all streets you have within the jurisdiction. So, what is the lowest address, range, lowest address, type address, the street name, include the directional, the name, the street type, the street avenue, drive, and it's going to have a unique PSN, emergency service number. What that tells us is what community is it, and where I am, we have 911 jurisdictions. So you have, are you within the city limits of, or are you in an unincorporated? 911 community is based on where you are, whether it's you're in a city limit or if you're in an unincorporated county. So this ESN say is what jurisdiction is it or what 911 community is it? And then it would tell us by that what police, fire, and EMS would respond to that particular area. If you have a street that runs from city to county, we'll have different ESNs based on community and then the responders as well. And then also, so every phone company, there are those phone companies out there, they have to validate every customer record against the MSAC. Otherwise, you'll have 15 different ways to list Main Street. Is it Main? Is it Main SP? Is it spelled out? What jurisdiction actually had Main spelled like the same as Main? You find a lot of different things. But it's a way to validate or verify and have a consistent way that the research listed. So what does the MSAC do? We have already talked about some of it already. But it is the owned by it is jurisdiction, not by the phone company, not by the post office. So there is responsibility. And each local government, and in some cases it's planning or development or public safety or whoever who's responsible for issuing addresses, it falls in line with if you have addresses standards in place, making sure all of that falls in line because often it is that we have an address that doesn't follow any type of system and then emergency responders are responded and it slows down the response time and possible problems. We don't like that kind of stuff on the news, right? So again, where I am, we have a dedicated person for each jurisdiction that handles that. They're the go-to person, and they not necessarily have all the answers, but they're the one that knows where to find the answers. So I might have a 911 manager, while they don't issue addresses or they don't issue labs or whatever, but they have access to the right people in research to get us the information that we need. Sometimes it is plan zoning, sometimes it is GIS. So, all in some situations is really wonderful. They're in a county, so Jefferson County, Missouri, for instance, each jurisdiction has their own. So you may have 20 different contacts in that county because depending on the city and unincorporated, but then you have Kansas and then a point in Wayland here. These are kind of contacts of all of Johnson and Miami County. So it's really nice when they have somebody that's been given an authorization to access to all of this and give us the answers that we need for asking questions, mapping questions, and things like that. So ask yourself, or your folks, if you're here with someone, do you have that dedicated person in your jurisdiction who answers the questions, who gives information to the utilities and the phone companies, if a new house is built, the street is built, very dedicated person, and not, maybe that you don't know who it is, you can figure out who that person is, or maybe that person should be you know, again. So that's kind of a question for you. Figure out who it is. So let's talk about the creation of the 911 database. So there are different phone companies, right? And every phone company maintains their own separate database. They may have one database for billing, they have a database for service, the addresses may not be the same. They have a database, some, for still public, and have, they have a working for that. What we're most interested in, of course, is the 911 database, and that's the service address because where do we need to go to somebody call with an emergency at this address? So a company has to feed the record to whoever the database provider is. You may contract with CenturyLink or another provider, maybe you try with a third-party provider, or maybe have a Valley, which is a standalone database within the center. How do those records get loaded to you if you have a Valley? How is the information being validated or verified? So that NSAG in place, the phone company would send a change through and it has to bump up against the NSAG. If it hits, then it'll flow through to master 911 or out of database. But if it isn't, if for some reason they have the street name wrong, or if the house number is outside that range, the kickback is an error to that phone company that sends it that says, hey, this isn't validated, you need to figure out what's going on. Sometimes when that happens, people call in to get new phone service, and they just make up addresses, or they don't like the address, and they choose them, they try to do something else. That's sometimes it's not validating against that master record that we have. So it's or validate against the effect that's in place. There are national standards that we use for addressing and for abbreviations and all types of things. So NENO, which is the National Emergency Number Association, they're one of the 911 associations. They have a number of standards in place that okay, so you don't have to worry about writing all of that down if you're interested in it. But I encourage you to, if this project is something that will be your responsibility, to learn more about the standards that are in place, and then also the post office, the CS has guidelines that follow as far as the work that we're doing and the ensuring we're using, again, the appropriate abbreviations and national standards. Now, I will say we have one city that has 3 separate things that they use in their city, because there's like an old part and a new part, and everything is going to fit within a standard. But anything new that's being developed, or if you have a question on the street, and I don't know if it's in the right street type, or if it falls under the right definition, or what a new or what a traffic way is, or that type of thing, this is a resource to get answers to your questions. Okay, so here we're going to create a little fake MSEG here, and this is our city, and, you know, realistically, would this happen? Maybe not, but we do have some instances where we have one city that annexed itself into a different fire district. One city that has 2 different annexations is all the city of Blue Springs. The northern part is one fire district, the southern part is a different fire district within one city. So it could have something like this. We have a city that has, different and if we were to break it down, we would say, okay, these are law enforcement, fire, and now, most of the time, one city is going to have one ESN. The unincorporated areas where you have different fire and ambulance districts, that's where really the boundaries are going to be. So, second question for you is, you know what your district boundaries are. If you don't, like your fire, your EMS, law enforcement is usually easier because of city police or county, and county may work some of the small cities that they do unincorporated, but especially your fire and EMS boundaries. What do you use tax records? What do you go by? I said no. I mean, I remember times when I had two departments respond to an incident arguing on the scene. That's my address. No, that's my address. Or that's not mine. Oh, it's not mine. I'm not going. How do you know? Reading that is. So that's going to challenge question number 2 for you to find out for sure. So sample MSEG and try to follow the standards that are in place for highway, street, avenue, and directional. Use lowest address range within the particular district. So, say you have names that only is within the city, but also travels outside of the city. You're going to have a listing for each individual. So have the low range, the high range. This odd even goes a little shorter. mainly comes into effect when it's a boundary street, the county line road or city limit road. One side of the road is one jurisdiction and one side is the other. Odd addresses in one jurisdiction and even addresses in the other. So if that's the case, only in Blue Springs, I know this particular road on the other side of the road is a different city. So if we were to look at independent, then you would see the even addresses you would follow that. And those is what you would see most often, and that is that street and then that jurisdiction both sides of the road. So it's only for boundary streets that we have to worry about that, because then that helps me. If I'm looking for an address and I see it says address, then I'm looking at another jurisdiction. Some crazy address and stuff that happens just like the community has some weird stuff or whoever was issuing addresses at whatever time they've made up their own rules or crazy stuff. But we have one street, and each address is like the directional boundary goes kind of like this. And so we had actually built impacts for one or two addresses that fit because the neighbors on the other side are within that other jurisdiction. So keep that in mind when you're talking about your boundaries. You know, we talk about fire boundaries, but also your jurisdictional boundaries. You have really good to know who's where. Okay, so this is an example of the alley and the audited location information, and it's a 911 location. So your alley record is a 911 location that displays a 911 call. So what information comes across on a wire line 911 call? You have the phone number, phone is registered to, and the service address, or where we should be responding to if that's where the emergency is, and who the phone company is. That comes into play if for some reason we need to go back and get more information on that particular address, or there's some sort of hang up and we can't get it, we can't find it. So who the telephone company is, who the unique responders are, so police, fire, and EMS, and then also what their ESN is. The ESN is also used for routing of the call initially. Again, talking about a tabular database, you have with two columns. One is a phone number, and the other is an ESN, and it says this phone number goes to this ESN, and it's just a routing tabular database. But it tells us what PSAP those 911 calls to be routed to, the public safety answering point, or the 911 center, or dispatch communication. And the emergency service number, and what falls to that ESN, and that ESN boundary. Well, I did not do that. So it's the 911 community, who that is to the primary answering point that answers those 911 calls. And then who's the police, fire, and EMS response to that particular. So here's an example emergency service map, and this is Leavenworth County, Kansas. And they actually rebooked all their ESNs a number of years ago because they had had an ESN, but all of them were incorporated with made sense to the phone company at the time when they established it, but it was difficult for dispatchers because then they didn't know who the fire or EMS response was for the county. So we went in and cleaned it up and broke it down. It usually happens. And so we had to go in and really check to see who the fire and EMS response was for that jurisdiction. But so that is a unique set of police, fire, and EMS response for the area. So or change to an MTAG or map data. things in mind are any changes occurring in your jurisdiction. New construction, annexation, there was one jurisdiction that had, it's on Fort Leavenworth, and their Army base, so it's a little bit different, but they have certain neighborhoods that they completely tore down the buildings, the houses, the streets, total life, the area clean. We can't put new streets in, new street names, building new homes, like totally doing it all. Even our mass data and impact with the old data. So we started seeing error reports come in from dispatchers saying, someone called 911 and we don't have that on our map. We couldn't find it, we didn't know where it was. Well, because of subdivision we built and it hasn't been cited into the map. Range is extended or reduced. So, you have a road that kind of dead ends and goes to here, and then they'll build like a subdivision, they kind of keep it extended out. Little boundaries change, which would be an annexation, or we had here fire departments that had this down, and we had to change, and then put some other kind of surrounding fire districts, so we had to go and make changes to the fire and EMS response, or if there's some fire districts that they found it. So question number one, who's your person, your go-to person whenever a change needs to be made? So that was specific changes to your database provided that it's a standalone database. So it's PNC, Century, Lincoln, whoever it is, they would be able to access the website that those companies use and submit changes. That's who we use. They have a secure site, password protected, and you can go on, view your end tags, view individual customer records that fall under those end tags, and submit change requests, change the live database, and some pages to go through, and it's just good system. Excuse me, if you have mass changes to be made, like say find all, okay, we have all of our streets in our city that should have SP streets. That olden days, when AT&T built this information, they were trying to save hard drive space on their old giant, computers. So they did not put a street type in if it was street SP. And so now we're going back through. So if you have some math changes that we made, and say you want to go through and add SP to all of these, or the abbreviation showing AD, the national standard of AD, there are easy ways to go through and make those changes. And we provide some of the slides, so we do provide the content for those companies if you want to request to it. And I highly recommend it. I mean, again, there's work if you know what they have in there. And you can do and questions. So, I don't know, you can see this. This is an example of an error that we found. We've been running what we call the geocode, where we're comparing 911 database to our map. And it starts with some of our jurisdictions at a pretty low match rate. We're talking like 15, maybe 30%, but we work really hard to clean up whether it's the database map or both, so the match rate is 98% better match rate, which is what the 98% or better. So here's one of our errors that we have. West, I think it was here, Bonner Springs, Kansas. And when we looked at it straight up, we noticed that here we have a yes and a 100, but the map has a yes and a 100. Okay, yeah, that's the problem where it's not matching. But then you have to find out what should it actually be. Do we need to send that, or do we need to put the map up? In the case, the text was right, and so we had to just go in and submit a request that the map that gives an information with them. Sorry about that. Okay. This in general isn't kind of loud, right? Yeah. When you start getting your reports back, you'll see all kinds of stuff as mismatches, and just know one, it happens everywhere. It's not just alone. If you have any questions that come up as you're working it, you can ask Sherry or Mark. I have to get the right people that know a lot more about the GIS side than I do. I'm more on the 911 data side. We view them, we use them, but I don't build data. It's a little for me. So here we have another example, and this North Stillhouse Road. And I don't know what the person was thinking that day, but it really did not fall in line with the numbering system that we use. And emergency responders are having a hard time finding this. And in some situations, the patient decides to issue an request. Sometimes people now when you're saying, open your address for, 25 years, well, guess what? We're going to use there are things that you can do in the map data, like with an address point system or a unique MSHAG that just covers that one address. It's not the best way, but it is workable if you need to. The big thing is, can you see responders find that address that they need to? We can build a system and make it work, but in real life, how well is it really going to work if we can get responders there? And what goal is an apartment complex. And what we found is we had a list of like every address in this complex area. So we have like 100 areas. We thought, oh my gosh, what is going on? We have that many addresses everywhere. The problem was we had two separate duplicate segments in the map. So this is one, and that was one, and it had exactly address. So the map was conflicting with itself, saying, we don't know which one is right because there are two different segments with the exact same addresses. So what we had to do is we had to just trying to within the map to more appropriately show where those buildings actually fall. So changes that 600 records. When we start getting your reports back, don't be overwhelmed if you see a lot of addresses listed, because again, it could be one or two minor changes that can fix a lot of it. So start to dig in and kind of see do they have in common? If they're all on the same street, it's probably map shows north as a the inside doesn't have a directional. Those are good fixes. I mentioned that we would provide the phone company contact for AT&T and CenturyLink. Okay. So the two major other companies, if you have someone else that's your database provider and you don't have a relationship with them or don't have a contact, reach out to them or let us know, and we'll see if we can't get a hold of, find out who the contact is. But definitely you want access to that website. You can see your tag, see your data, see your individual customer records that's in, because those are the people calling 911, and it's not correct on your display when they're calling 911 and you don't fix it, there's no liability on you. If you don't fix about it, then, it becomes a liability. Plus, would you want that to be your grandma that's calling 911 and one time and it's not right, nobody fixes it, calls the second time and it's still not fixed? And that's the frustrating part. And that too. What the AT&T website looks like, you were going to change as an example. So here we have the Adams Street in Kansas City, and here we're going down and we're making change. Sorry, we made some sort of change on here. That you have access to the site and bringing the site will walk you through exactly how to do it, and it's pretty user friendly too. It can be provided to AT&T, and it's over. Online. And it takes a few minutes, and it has a tracking system involved when you do it online. Okay, so say if you have a situation like an amputation or something that can be more complicated, you put the database manager at those companies providing it to them, because oftentimes you're saying, okay, here's what we have and here's what we need it to be, and rather than having to take 5 different steps and keeping track of everything that you have to switch and move and change and add, it's often easier for the AT&T technician to say, this is what it needs to be, and build it and change it. And if you need to move customers from one listing to another, say an station that they put in unincorporated and now you're moving it to a city with maybe a different street name or whatever. But those unique situations with them. And yes, the thing that we find no two are ever exactly alike. 911 error, right? This is when someone actually calls 911 and something didn't work right, whether it routed to the wrong set, the display correctly, no address, whatever it was. There are ways to fix it. Because if you don't fix it, the next time they call, it's still going to be a problem, right? We have competition every year between our different 911 centers, and the agency that submits the most valid error reports, little traveling trophy for a year, and then we have a second category because we have different size 911 centers, so it's kind of smaller call volume and then higher call volume, and so to try to kind of level the playing field, we have a category, and it's more valid error reports taking the call volume into consideration. We have this mathematical formula and so forth. And they have this little traveling trophy that's like their bragging rights, they really like. And then also, for every agency that submits an error report during that time frame, we deliver donuts to their higher community center. And that's what I've been doing the last couple of weeks, going and visiting. Well, in fact, I love food, right? And also, it really gives an opportunity to sit down and just remind, thank them for what they do, and maybe it could be in April during Telecommunicator Week or something like that. But okay, so back on track here. talk about that. When would we ever, no record not found, when the address doesn't display at all, when it's incorrect, we try to state what it should be, what the address should be. Say responders have a hard time finding it, and because the database has more, there's not actually more. That type of thing. First, you research it, find out what the correct information should be, and you want to submit it to whoever it is to get corrected. Misrouted, and then incorrect phone number. These happen. Weird stuff happens. There have been a number of times that the technician is out working on a pedestal, you know, those little kind of pedestal things out in someone's yard or at an intersection, and there's takes off. And the person calls 911, but their neighbor's phone number and address comes through on the call. They're like, automatically, that is not possible. Weird things are possible. I'm telling you, we've had some weird things happen. So whenever you, and the sad thing is, oftentimes you have to convince the phone company that it really did happen and that it really was a problem. But it's our responsibility to correct if you work at communication, you know, your responsibility to do what you need to do, and in some cases it's reaching out to, again, planning and zoning or GIS or whoever does the admin portion of it and admitting that error report. It's not an inside that needs to be changed. It may be a customer record within, and you know, there maybe it's just oh, wow. Yeah. And that happens to me. I'm talking more wireline, but when we get into wireless and voice over internet, like IP type calls, there are a lot of other things that come into play with that too. Cell phones don't know jurisdictional boundaries, and we have a lot of transferring that has to occur with cell phones, right? But if you get a call from Texas or from Nebraska, there's something wrong. There's something going on, right? So, and they can't fix it if they don't know about it. So also it's important to keep a listing of their carriers and their contact information. There's wireless, wireline, Voice is the third-party provider that they might use. Say, I can have a Vonage phone and I move to California. And unless I self-initiate correcting or updating that address, if I call 911 again, it's going to show my old address. Wherever I am. So there are a number of these phones that are soft, just computer-based. And if I'm a traveling person, I use my laptop and I'm also working off my laptop, and I'm in a different hotel or Starbucks or whatever every day. And again, you have to self-initiate the change of address, and it usually takes 1 to 2 business days to go through. So I may be in a different part of the country, or I may be in a different country altogether if I have to call 911. Again, those are a little bit harder to track down and correct, but they can be, and we need any sort of error like that it needs to be reported. And totally a brick wall and can't figure out what direction to go, you can always contact me or anything. You know, there are a lot of people that can help point it in the right direction or talk it through with you a little bit more. So kind of in conclusion, it is important, and way more important than what most people give it credit for. The citizen calls 911, we want it to route to the right PCAP. We want the address to display correctly. It has to be bumped up against the NSEG, so that NSEG has to be right. Of course, your map data needs to be right. For plotting of calls, and one thing that we didn't mention so much, this year gets into us next year, is that the routing of the calls will be based on data, so it has to be right. And in order for those two databases to sync up, they need to match. And it all works properly. and people being in safe property. And that's our goal, right? Is to make sure everything works correctly and we get people the help they need. And any questions? Okay, so that would be like instead of focus on reasons, but I know that we have a couple of people from reason 5 on something, and I think some others. So I'm going to hit reason 5 a little bit because we have those people involved today. Okay, I think I have a map of this up earlier. This map actually shows where we are at in the gap analysis process. So we have completed and delivered reasons 1 to 4. Reasons 5 are going to deliver on or before the 3rd of September. And reason 6 talks a little bit about that in a couple of minutes, more details on that. 5, those of you who are involved in region 5, we have 25% you can find information in it. We did a couple of data sets. One was by large dogs and county. So we're through Johnson County CAMA data right now. So we're getting there. Our goal is to have the reports done either by the end of this week or next week. So in 6, we have 5 counties in which we have not received data. And Shane, I know you're here from Bourbon County. Haven't received yours yet, correct? Or send it through. That was not correct. So we do have Bourbon. We not received Chase, Chautauqua, Neosho. So those 4 are correct. We've had a discussion about these counties. Last year we did. County does not have the GIS data. We still have to look at that. But it was interesting, nonetheless, what we received from them. So Chase County data wasn't the actual data and that, but we'll have to discuss that. County?
Sure. Yeah, I think.
Okay, so we'll just stand by if we actually. So yes, that was interesting what we received there. Outstanding CAMA data, we haven't received any of the CAMA data, and I just wanted to tell you all she will be making the request. So we're pretty well with her. Okay? She came to me first thing when I got her. I was going to tell me I haven't sent you any data yet. Now they'll have data to where are we at in the data process status? We haven't started any of the CAMA. We have not done any of the NSAG. Although we do have all of the NSAG data available to us. We
We have 7 of the 19 telephone number listed, 19 GIS data sets. There are 2 more that are actually being processed right now. So when I say 7, the data is the process. We have 2 agents that are working on it. They're in the process of working on 2 additional readings. The reports yet, we're not done processing the data. And our plan is to get those to the council on or before the 29th of October. I was something else that I forget what it was. Come back to me if it's important. So a little bit about what you're going to see in the gap analysis for, because I have a slide on what the process is, but basically the process is we request the data, we receive the data, we analyze the data, we put the report, we send the report to Scott and bring it in, and at that point, Scott then dispenses those to whoever they need to go to. And I think they're going to the 911 center. They're going to the GIS people also. So they go to the vendor and the staff, and then the staff and this is the gap. Okay. So you will get that those reports from Scott, and like I said, they'll report for October. So a little bit about what you're going to see in the report. I have a screenshot of an actual jurisdiction. This is in we're close to here. And I just want to walk through what you're going to see and what we're actually looking at. The first thing that we look at is, are there any specific features? So do we have 2-step municipal boundaries on one another? We all in the GIS world that can happen. We multiple duplicate items because we copy what we move it and change fast. So those are the types of things that we're looking for there. And that's what we're looking for, is where boundaries don't align, like where they're overlapping. And the problem with overlapping boundaries is we get into something where is it this fire department or is it that fire department? In the future, we look at 911, if those are overlapped, we have 2 fire departments. One, you have to send that, right? You have to somewhere along the line decide which one is the one that's going to receive the call out. And there are some times when there are multiple fire departments that respond. But those kind of things that we're looking for. And if overlap, perhaps where it is one that has to be the fire department. So we're looking for those types of things. Gaps, we're looking at the same type of thing. So if you have your boundary and bound A is here, bound B is here, what's here? If a fire there, nobody gets called. Or if a law enforcement call, does nobody get called in the area? So those are the things that we're trying to look for. Over this is where we're looking for things where perhaps the road, the light of the road that it's intersected with. So logical overhangs, right? We have driveways that are overhanging. Really overhanging. Those are allowable. Let you know, actually, that is only those really short ones where we didn't have the 2 roads together for whatever the reason is. I'm looking at roads right now, and all of your addresses are going to some more, and do that road segment, you have one that goes from north south. What is that? It is something that truly happens in the jurisdiction, but wouldn't it really be odd if all of them are going from the 100 blocks to the 2 blocks, and then all of a sudden they're going to 200? That's a big logical sense. Perhaps there's something wrong with the GIS data. We're explicit intersections. When we want concerned with our road intersections, okay? In NG911, we have to be concerned with splitting road intersections because there's a lot of additional data for those road segments that didn't exist in standards. So anywhere where your road segment crosses a fire boundary or a police boundary or a county boundary, this is boundary, they'll have to be split. And should talk about those ones in detail. I want to do it to know what we're looking for in the gap analysis. We're also looking for correct GIS. An example, you can see that it says NA are not applicable. That's because they do not have a GIS data layer. It does give us an ESN boundary data layer. We cannot use a GIS boundary correct. So it's an NA because either A, you don't have that field, or B, that GIS data layer doesn't exist, or you didn't provide it to us. Looking at road names, and this is where, you know, a one that we see is where a highway, I think a federal highway goes into the jurisdiction, and somebody keeping it let's just say Highway 50 Overbrook is the street to the Overbrook, but maybe 8th Street, and the next one is 75 or 50 Highway, next street is 8, next is 8, next is 7, 50 Highway. You start going here, so no consistency across the area. This is the next gen 911 with a radius approval, and you can put that information taken care of when we don't have those errors. Originally, when we did the impact errors, we looked at one the impact. We actually changed that. Started with. We're looking at 3 different things. We'll give you a list where roads have no matching impact, a 1-to-1 match. We're looking at where the impact has no matching roads, a 1-to-1 again. And then we're also giving you a sheet that tells you where impact range is different than road street range. Okay? Some okay, but some aren't okay. And Sherry, you're going to talk about that more in detail. So this afternoon we'll talk more in detail about those. But I want you to know that those are in there when you get your report. We look at how well the telephone number listing synchronizes your address point. So you're seeing list numbers with the address should match address point. Don't match. Excuse me. When you don't match or so it gives you a match 80% instead of 100%. A lot of things that we're doing this is not a matter of a whole bunch of addresses. There's some kind of difference. Data layers, the standardized data layers are missing, and you can see this one has several. And we didn't get an authoritative boundary, we didn't get a TMS, fire, law enforcement boundary, or so we have this case. We have more data lined up to the NENA standards. Now, when he don't feel we're allowed to have new fields. What we're trying to do is how actively the jurisdiction is there to that. That is not allowed for public data the state campus or the Kansas national model there because we do the same thing over and over again. So that is to the state standard, not necessarily a NENA standard. So what we also give you in the actual tab itself is what the your field is because the field should be, and it tells you the type. Found it where it was supposed to be number we're seeing some text fields, those kind of things are fixed during remediation. We always look at the address point field that's a good test to see do you have all the everything feels 100%. Those are pretty good. At all. And you can see one has we're looking at the CAMA listing, and we're doing to provide the locals and the some kind of idea of how many addresses we 100% we learn from the data. Everybody will admit that there are some issues with that, so it's not 100% fixed, but at least it gives you an idea of how many addresses in your data set. Looking at multi-address structure format, this is how do you manage your multi-structure address points. So how do you manage your shopping centers? How do you manage your address? How do you manage your apartments? Are you placing a single point that have one address, or are you placing four addresses? And we're going to show later how that is supposed to be done in remediation. Look at some abbreviations. We look at, the suffixes. We're looking at the pre-directional errors, the post-directional errors, and also let you know what the projection of your data is. And what are we looking at in that abbreviation? A dirty word that it's time-consuming, very time-consuming, but very, very necessary. I have a sheet of paper that gives you the description of what I have in the report, which is what to tell you. Maybe you're kind of that. This is nothing more than telling you exactly what is on that sheet of paper. And for those of you on the phone, we will ensure that this paper gets out to you. Maybe even posted already on one of the websites. I'm sure we'll check and we'll make sure it's posted and it's sent out to those people who are on the phone. Talk a little bit about QA audit. Probably very what I'll do is I'll upload my part of it and then you can talk a little bit about QA audit. Okay, so just so you're aware, the QA audit that we do, that we perform, is going to be slightly different than the gap analysis. And the major reason for that, the state in the middle of the process. So we have to make everybody up. We're continuing what we were doing in Part A, and once we get to Part B, we will make it very important to ensure that we are protecting what the state has in the data. So like, it's not hugely different, but it's slightly different. GIS has told the state that you're going to try very hard to get the QA audit, the initial QA audit done in 5 business days. Now, caveat to that, if we have mediation vendors, and 5 mediation vendors, 5 years to run up the 1 week, will not be able to get that in 5 business days. With that, our priority would be in the meeting. So if we agree to 1 data, 2 data, 2 data, we will do 1 data first. Then we do, and then we do. Okay. So currently you all are 5 and 6. If somebody, some data is 5 and 6, you can make the way more business days. Very hard to get that done. Front side, we rely on the remediation vendor or the jurisdiction to upload the data. You guys can learn more about that. And then the data is available on the website. Our responsibility is to perform the QA audit, and we provide the QA audit back to the state. The state will do all of the investigations of the remediation and the local jurisdiction on their side. Is that right? So looking for the QA audit, well, the first thing we're going to do is look at the geodatabase format. We probably receive only about 5% of the data in Project A in database format. We take that we will receive a lot more data in the database format in Project B, because that is. We'll read topology, we'll again with the duplicate overlap overhang. We'll look at rows, orphans, anything, right? Orphans meaning it is out there, it's a little nowhere, but nobody knows why it's there. Right now, I can tell you that we do have versions that have orphans. The global software system, how it operates. So I know that compliance comes from past orphan components, orphan references, those data because of the way that the software works. We're going to do alignment. We're going to see that can fit within the authoritative boundaries. Again, look at explicit injection, rotationality, road name, consistency. Again, geocode the address point. We're going to look at the multi-structure. Actually, we're providing a list from U.S. Postal Service areas or structures that should be multi-structured, and take a look and see what those look like. So there's the data that comes in. And then, are they on the structure? And those are allowed. Are the things actually on the structures or not? We're also looking at how the new road segments line up with the topography, and understand a little bit more because there's certain specifics that you have to do to put new roads into your data. You look at all of the inventory fields and ensure that they can listen to be a domain, which is the next one. We'll ensure that the domain value is correct. If it's greater and there's no domain, we can on the side actually determine if that's a valid field or not. We can, but a lot of times we cannot. We're going to look at the unique and valid validation. In other words, every feature has to have a unique ID. It's being our field, and it shows that features, two features are the same unique ID. Right? We also ensure that the road ASID actually aligns to the road. So we'll make sure that it's actually what's going on the road center line to the road table. We're going to get the ESN values with the projections, and then we're looking at the SGBC mandatory metadata field. Now, this is another one where we cannot validate the content because that it is or is not filled out. There's going to talk more about those this afternoon, or when we have time. I guess I'm done with my part. Does anybody have any questions on that or the layout right now? You may have more later. So, and if you have a question, don't hesitate to call. I don't, what I'm doing is deleting the report, and he gets it, and they're like, I have no idea what it says. I think I got that call. I think I've gotten one of those calls from every week so far. Don't hesitate to call me. If you don't understand something in the report, please let us know. If you call me, and call Sherry, call me, you won't know what to talk about. You call Scott, you won't know, but you can call him anyway. So, if you have any questions, I'll be here for the rest of the day. So you can talk to me.
We have to make this study resident. We're together. We launch. We need to what all the kids, they want to come back after lunch. But what's here to do then? It's probably pay off. We're down to lunch. Okay, we're gonna do the lunch thing now. And especially with the request from the sandwich. You should know who you are. Yogurt sandwich by RS. RS will be written on the top of the I want to sandwich, but I want this, and this. I'm sure that what you will bring is not free. The thing that's the most important thing is you get to the everyone will show their receipt. Now, some of you will look at your receipt and say, the receipt says $9.76. I gave him $1. And nobody can more than $10. Just like what we appreciate it. Thank you very much. You've been a great crowd. We're starting in at 1 o'clock.
For those of you who are on the phone, we're going to mute our end so you hear all of the noise, but please return back at 1 o'clock.
give you all our names and phone numbers. If you need us for anything, on the list, we'll tell you who to call if you need help. So, if you can write that down again. Thank you so much for your presentation, and we look forward to it.
All right. Now, this room is, as we are all aware, kind of awful about being able to hear what's going on. So can you guys hear me okay? Am I echoing too much? So I start this presentation out with a primer on NG911. I actually started in 911 in 1997 and worked exclusively in 911 for 10 years and then moved to GIS. And I thought as dispatcher and eventually assistant director of a 911 center that I had pretty good lead on what next gen 911 was going to be. I was wrong. This project has taught me a great deal, and I've had to learn a whole lot about it. And I figured that everything that APCO was sending me, and everything that NIST that I probably didn't read very closely, while I was a 911 person, couldn't get me up to speed, that maybe you guys might need a primer too, so that you understood when we say NG911, what we're actually talking about. Yeah. We have what's called E911 or Enhanced 911, and what happens is all gets placed, we got 911, and we have the phone company move that call and information about it to what is called selective router. Selective router queries the impact. As I was saying earlier, is okay, this telephone number, now this ESN, tell about it from the impact, and once selective router gets that information back, it knows which key path to talk to. If you dial 911 from your home phone, you go to the county next door or one of the state. So, yeah. You ever had phone programmed incorrectly when they were coming to another county or whatever? Newton County, our next county over to the east is Berry County, and that's where Ocean City is. And the set of phone booths I've ever seen installed anywhere in the world were installed in Berry County and Ocean City, and they were all programmed to come to Newton County. So that was something that took quite a while actually to get clear. But because a record, the impact is wrong. That's happened. So 911. E911 is only very instead of going to a selective router, it goes to something called the EZNet. The network that the state is building is the infrastructure and the I3 network that Randall was talking about. EZNet acts GIS. Where that phone call. A lot of you have this perspective that NG911 is about receiving video and things like that. And that's part of it. But the real need of it. The real need of it is which staff gets the call, which 911 phone rings, depends on what is best. So as they wrote down on this solution, it has a few years, we had a subdivision or two added in the and so when there are calls 911, right, nobody cares because the phone company is making absolutely certain, even if you're not, that you have impact right or wrong. They won't put the phone in the door. You've ever been tagging they've gotten that phone call. And 911 when that subdivision goes in, and they start trying to phone to do the down off the a year or 2 years to update the GIS. It is done before control. You receive the plat, and you have to complete the building. To make this switch, because we have all of these other services that everybody can associate with NG911. You have images, you have video. Sensors from a water driver information. All of this kind of stuff is digital data. All of it is indescribable on the internet, but it cannot be picked up on the current 911 system, which is an analog system. You can't pick up digital information. Excuse me, or it can relay digital information, I guess is a better way to say it. So it can.
We also need something that has a little bit better survivability. 911 system is controlled by the phone company. You have to have very specialized equipment that goes in order to make it work. 911, hopefully, the way it's planned, is very basic computer systems on either end, very similar to the CPV servers you have in radios right now. So they have a bunch of specialized equipment that can only purpose from one place, you can only have one person work on it, that kind of thing. You have something that you can, one, rely on to be more really. Also, if you need to stand up at 911 center, someplace other than where you currently are, whatever disaster has you move. Rather than do that, it's a pre-planned place where you spend all this money by specialized equipment that just sits there and waits. You need it. You should go to at least temporarily and move to a possible place. Where you computers are getting. So we also want to improve interoperability and information. Right now, 911 is very, very private. We get a computer file and enter software or open it and find out that it has some expensive software to get it open. And 911 like that. And just as my county is using one kind of software, that is your county is something obviously not the county because of our proprietary. We're hoping to see a vast improvement in that because one thing that NENA, the National Emergency Services Association, is saying about these standards is that they call those formats. They will picture images, a format that does not require specialized software. So information sharing between 911 centers and between 911 and other agencies is a lot easier. Not to say mainstream 911 technology. You have to send in the current 911 and we're moving to a digital system. That's packet-based or IP track versus circuit switch or the current farm landline phone line. That's completely replicated for this system. You switch to any 911 and expect everybody to be positive right away. The phone can take a really long time to be completed some of our cancer, frankly. So you have to be able to do both the NG stuff and the old 911 stuff for as long as it needs to. We need a bunch of new capabilities to it, like I'm talking about text and video and that kind of thing. But we all recognize that we are moving to GIS versus strictly tabular MTech. It's a huge change, probably the most fundamental change in what we as local organizations are going to have to do with NG911. The other thing, I put NENA at the bottom of these two slides because I actually stole them from NENA. The other thing is that don't necessarily a local service. There's some piece of information that you're referring to with that's coming from your data only by the statewide database or national database of information. So you can't assume that everything that goes to them is going to come from your data. Because they have to be running to receive information from the website. I'll a little bit more about that later. So actually inside the 911. Well, with GIS database. This whole project is about putting that together. And database feeds information to two places in the 911 structure. One is LGS, or location validation function, and that's a function where the phone company and any other person or organization that is to make sure an address truly exists, or here they're going to test it against this location validation function. Before they ever dial 911, they're sure before they put the phone into the address, they test it by checking there. With IP, same maybe with alarm systems. I bring that up a lot. Alarm systems are getting more and more automated. are getting more intelligent and can begin send information instead of one center instead of two call centers. That's one of the things that we are really emphasizing they expect to happen quickly. So it's a place people who are trying to get pieces of equipment communicating with the 911 system to test and ensure their locations actually work. The EDRS, or Emergency Call Routing Function, and that is the big monster of the whole system, and the reason why we have to do GIS so early in the NG911 process. It is determined which telephone rings we dial 911. And GIS data, we're not picked the appropriate feedback, it's not picked the appropriate count to send. So before we even begin testing the larger network, GIS data has to be in place. So when we LDF, the data is constantly updated. If you decide to read some Enhancement standards, there's interesting information in there, but probably about 2 pages worth in a 60-page document. Now, they're pretty dry. They call that provisioning through the SIS, that's the terminology. And what happens is that the GIS database is going back and forth with information to this location validation function, which is just another computer on the system. It sends a message to that LDS saying I have an address that is good, and the investigator says, yeah, do you think? Well, it's not good. Here's some of the options that I've gone over of times when this is going to happen. But don't be up constantly in order for all of the different service providers to be able to do this. When dials 911, as I showed you on the earlier slide, hit the end. If you diagram next to 911, it's probably the reason that we stopped working into 911 because inside here that diagram are 15 boxes and about 3 or 4 different names. From this perspective, we don't have to care about all that other stuff. What we care about is that one of those boxes is that ECRS, how it works. GIS is the ECRS. When the call comes in, the ECRS does 2 things. It's a big job, route the call to the right instep. That job. But its job is to grab additional information about the call and to call to send it to dispatch. We'll put an Allen screen where it has the phone number, the name, the address, that kind of thing, police fire unit. Like an NG911 would have the phone number, the name, the address, police fire unit. It's very identical, except that there will be a whole bunch of other information that could conceivably be information perhaps about the parcel, to information about local hazardous materials in the area, to information about what the utility companies are for that particular address. More information can be attached to the database, whether it's you maintain locally information maintained at a regional or state level, or whether it's a national data set, will be able to take back to the call takers to help give them information that can be helpful in one call. But now, that data is accurate, and if the data it's going to grab doesn't match up with that GIS data. That's all has to be standardized and not to have a stuff with you the same way and made constantly. Last one, the ability of emergency calls will depend on standardized GIS data that is both current and accurate. 911 won't work with that. GIS office that has always kind of been in the back corner, it's been a secondary job, and you haven't been able to do very much with it because you have a lot of support. You become very, very useful. But at our data model for Canvas, and I'll explain where it came from here. There is in the calendar like 14 pages of software software that is IT. And people that are instructing the pieces of hardware and software have to know how to build it. So that they are looking at the now figuring out what the data is going to look like, what pieces of data is available, how they can be that kind of thing. So that's a GIS data model. Sort of a working process at this point, but they have developed what it is going to have to look like. All the software people are already building off of this model. We match that model. We don't know that they're going to do with all of the different pieces that go to the I3 network. It's the thing we have to match up to in order to make use of an I3 network. So again, we took a look at the new model, and there were two things we saw in there that we thought were for what we were doing here. We have pieces of information that we thought it would be really important to have in there. One of the best examples is address points. In model, address points are only recommended, they are not required. So, cost to the needed community. Wow. From the perspective, the address points are much more valuable than to developing a location or a geocode for an address. They make them recommended, not required, because they make people across the nation wouldn't have that many jurisdictions wouldn't have address points. So it would be so expensive, it would be prohibited if they required it. They wanted it. So a PDOT survey that we had done a few years ago, it is we county already had address. And it was perfect and up to date, but had something. And you can help those that didn't have them, or those that needed them updated, to get them out. So the intent is not to make the address point better location determined for addresses a requirement. So have not, in one case, we have gone under the unit standard, but it's unique and I'll explain it. The other case, we have stepped in some places a little bit beyond the standard because Kansas is already ready for that. There are other pieces of information within the data that you didn't ask for, but are just because we felt like it would be really useful and it's easy data to come with. Here in just a second. So this big document is on the DAS website, it's the Board Data Council website. It is the standard for NG911 GIS data in Kansas. We look at the document later. There are 3 documents embedded. If we there is something about that field, the unit, that class, whatever, to make it more. Since we were actually answering a request that had come from a county or city or other jurisdiction, but it's like some guidance on how to do something. But the requirement, of course, you to do it that way. So rather than make these recommendations mandatory and a burden on everyone, hey, this is the recommended word method, and if you'd like to follow it, that's fantastic. Here it is. If not the way you prefer to do things, you find it prohibitively difficult, as long as it doesn't look bad on us. Of data stewards, local data stewards, and that whoever is responsible for maintaining the data. That's not them. It's community. Who are their answers to the information to that. Local by default is the supervisor because this is a 911 thing, and that's the contact with the court data council staff. Many of your jurisdictions have been paid. It may be trade, it may become GIS, it may become a county administrator, or it may become a registered deed. It could be a whole host of people, depending on the county organization is. And it's the person that we need to call about the GIS data if there's a problem with it in the NG911. Even if my WC, you need to call them. Somebody locally to call, and that's your data steward. We have data aggregation and data aggregator. Now, right now, we have 117 PFAPs worth of data out there, and I've never had to put together like a puzzle before. You know, yes, eventually, but data is the process to put them together. Aggregators who are going to do that. The ideas of how that's going to happen and who are going to do it. But if it's some of the fully remediated data back, we test that out and make sure that what we think is going to work. Much of it is written as we go. Just to get out that we changed the standard in the middle of this whole process, and that's why the QA tests are a little different than the gap analysis tests were. But the truth, there wasn't a standard when we started the whole gap analysis. The only standard was the MENA standard. It's an area that it did not offer advice that most of us who were involved in the project, no GIS people wanted to assistance on. Just wanted some suggestions on what's the right way to do this. So trying to put something together, you can put the best progress that started. Just kind of so. Data aggregation, data aggregator, we'd like to play all the details of it, but the fact is we're still making this up as we go. And test it, make sure we think it's going to happen, actually works. We can't exchange, so. One of the things that's been kind of hard for people to get their head around is the idea of authoritative data. That are submitted by a data steward must be inside your report feed down with column. This is kind of basic working. What it means is if you are a county and responsible for all of the data in that county, you can bring data from that county. Even as I do, as Simpson County's data steward, in my own data, I mean all kinds of stuff in the county stuff. Miles and miles of data in every county that touches ours because of the cell phone 911 and that kind of thing. Totally free to have that in your 911 data. But you have the authority on that data. So you can submit it to this NG911 project with all the county data attached to it. Cultures have to be inside your authority to download polygon. For most of us, it's county boundaries, for some of this is city boundaries. Some of this is county boundaries, that will donut hole where the city is. To grasp. With about attribute standards, all of this information is, like I said, 15 computer systems. Very important that all of the information is in a standardized format. Includes, hang on a second. There we go. I have a question up on the screen about what happens if you have ESNs that overlap into Nebraska. I don't, you can hear me really well, let me know if you can't. But the gun needs to end at your border. It ends that your agencies may respond past your border, and that's fine. 911 purposes, it has to end at your county boundary. You can question so you have to actually match these attribute types. In your document, we say it is A or alphanumeric, it has to be by the field. A D is a defined field. It not be decimals. And be decimals, integer. And attributes in the whole thing, we'll go over to talk about there in just a minute. It is either mandatory, you have to look at it. For the font, you have to look at it. For options, people are not as additional attributes is the ground on the street. That street is in north, south, east, or west street. If it is north, south, east, or west street, you have to have that in there. You don't have to have it. So it must be there. And every field, you know, must be in your data, even if it is optional and you've chosen not to populate it, it's still needs a placeholder there for it. It should be in the same order. Now, I know some of you have software that will not really work with that. There's several different applications out there that really require the street name to be the very first thing in the table. So, if you are in that situation, you absolutely have more data, but not if you have a good business reason not to try to keep everything in the same order. Make it easier as we're sticking 17 of these together. Going forward. We used to use field names that are different than the ones recommended in the standard. That's cool. You can use whatever field name you want, but you go into the metadata and say this is equivalent field in the standard. This one is equivalent to this field in the standard. Go in and do that so that it is uploaded in a larger database. They have it and have no question. Persistent, unique identifier, not object ID. Not because that is not persistent. There are some things you can do within ARC in which it will reorder and renumber your features. Each one should be feature 1 from now until the end of the data. You have to assign that. It's in the world to do within ARC. Well, frankly, within any of the GIS software that I've ever seen, it's just that unique identifier thing all that well. There's tools that's been built that you're welcome to use. If you're using some method of doing this, you're welcome to use your own method as well. There's no requirement to use the tool. Just that there's nothing in the software to just do it for you. It's simply attribute. It's only valid value for that attribute. There are a couple of these. The one that always seems to catch people is the surface side of the road. For Linux, it is optional. You do not have to fill it out. I believe it's optional if I'm wrong. We'll look at it. Only has paved, gravel, soil, and unbuilt. So we haven't. Now, we make the difference between concrete roads versus oil-based roads versus all of this. We obtain better detail in that in our surface data. And that's what we do it in the surface field. We don't do that. But we have set a domain, and most of those are set by UNA. Where that is set, and obviously it's different than that domain and that field. We have 4 different fields about the road type. You're welcome to. When we require to only have the so yeah, I have quite a few questions about that, so I'm sure I'm relaying that pretty well. So let's stop presentation for just a second. Open up the data model document. And I have a trouble habit of making, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's scrolling so quickly. So if you get the, don't look at the screen scrolling. I'll tell you when I'm done. This is really small. So I got to scroll. So road center line setup. And now so this is the road center line setup, and there are a whole lot of attributes. I know them all in detail, but I wanted to do the ones that everyone did a test and just kind of show you some people might have questions on. The very first thing is the data steward. This is identical in every single record, in every single piece of possible. This is responsible for it. Mine is, I think 48490 is the number. It stands for the Dickinson County Data Steward, and it is the number that we pull. We get stuff from either state or national standards. I get in the back of the document, but the steward is just whose record it is. We'll also have an L update or the updated field. We have that a change was made to the record. You can see that over here. Mandatory conditional option. Passed out. We have a date. This is requirement. Expiration date. Effective being mandatory, the expiration being conditional. There is, if you knew a road name change was coming into effect, you knew that July 1, the road was no longer going to be a state highway, let's say it was going to local control. So instead of being paid for to become old highway or when you decided, just effective date and expiration date have two features in there. That's the reason they did that. I say that person really wanting to have to draw the road twice. They changes and make the change. Neat about especially this effective date. So we just know the first of this year for all the data. You don't need to go back and figure out when the road was made or anything like that. I don't want to use expiration dates. I know I want to use expiration dates. There's no requirement for you to say, don't worry about it. Also have an identifier. There's SEG ID, add ID. There's a that unique identifier in the local data set. We have put this one as an alphanumeric, meaning it's text field, because we require it to be a text field. So one thing that we cannot use is this 1, 2, 3, 5, and then calculate it with math. That's why I recommend, if you don't have an idea of how you want to use this unique identifier, that you use the tool we made. It's pretty easy to use, and it's needs to be unique. I say 99.99% of the time. The normal stuff. We have some people have a little issue with the difference between unity, postal unity, and effective unity. And we're out that incorporated to if there's any limits, you have to put the name of that city. It has to be selected from a list of cities that meet the mandate. We have Kansas that isn't in there. Doesn't mean we won't. If we do, then we'll communicate with MENA and with the organization that maintains the list and get it fixed. But post unity can be from the municipality. Their municipality. Local community may be associated with an unincorporated community in your area. Community name, for a lot of people, is going to be identical to the postal community. At least AT&T has explained that much of the rural area of their database is presents that community off of what the postal service says. That's why you get out in the rural area and you can say, I don't like this town, and so not community on there to have the next town over, even though both of them are 10 miles away from the address. People have either changed it to, or AT&T originally set it up where the community was incorporated community, and if it was outside of the incorporated area, the inside community is just the county. The case, then that's what you have to have. So you kind of define the three of them. You move to the bottom, get some automobiles wanted in there. So here, at date by, you hit the ones that were added up. First, you know who updated the record. We have put on there when was it updated. We asked for the name. That's going to be one person. one person, and they're all going to say the same thing. Cool. But in some of our stuff, it's not the case. In some, it's not just at all. It's going to be a vendor. And some of the larger agencies, it's going to be a whole host of different people. So now, if there's a problem with the single record within the database, they need to talk to someone so that they're we street name all broken out into its different components. You can put it all back together with a script, but rather than having to, and to do that every time and apply it, we ask that you go ahead and put everything together the way it's supposed to be, so there's a labeling. It is easy to use at full database level, but it also makes the data easier to use at your level. We'll let you map out of it. Start relation from and to, which I will explain in a little bit. And we add the ESNC, which Nina is going to add. One thing within the data set is something I I'm familiar with looking at apart from that, and for those of you that aren't, I will do my best to explain it in a way that we don't have to have some parts data. Or we have a road right away. An extra road right away. The actual parcels are the actual properties that get address. Do not get started until you're outside of that road right away. Now, if you are on one side of the road, county on the other side of the road, it either a road or it comes to one of the right-of-ways, and the right-of-way itself has the same ESN as one side or the other of the road. Or maybe it's going on half of the right-of-way and you can have right-of-way. It's fine. ESN right and left. But sometimes you'll see property on both sides of the road without taking the road is pain. Or island annexation a long time ago, and they stripped up underneath of it and they never finished it. Now, the on the left are in the city. The on the right are in from the city. But the island of the road is different from both of them. Now you need to use the tool. If that is your situation, you're not ready to fill it out. And be able to do things like and things like that to be able to tell, hey, the center line is a different place than the address is on the side of it. So optional, but has not made their decision yet. They did not envision that anybody would ever have this situation. But we are not the only place that does. Several other states have also said, what about this situation where the business won't pay them? They don't pay them. Or they can take the land on either side of it, because the people on the side of the city that shouldn't want to make something way at the other end of it. What? So they're going to be adding in, it's just not the draft it's out right now. Maybe optional, I was right. Surface five road we added because eventually one of the things that we see happening with the data, that when you have a big disaster in the county and people are coming to help you from somewhere else, other than the GIS person having to get up in the middle of the night to the office and make maps or send data out, that we're going to go, okay, we're going to Dickens County to help them out. Here's the data to be able to get to them. So this is not about tracking road maintenance or anything else. This is literally about if the road exists and it will pay so that the road will drive. That's not about anything else. If you pay more accurate surface data for your own road maintenance work, that's fantastic. Either in the field so it doesn't say surface or surface type or something like that, or reading this one and just make sure you put the metadata My data, the NG911 surface field, is the same as the road surface field. Populated, that's fine. But this is really bad. We had a whole lot of closed, although we made that a pretty often. It's really what a lot of people call paper roads. There's divisions that have been filed but never built, or that are open right away that you may have in your data. These are online files for your business purposes, and everything is zero. Have that not built in there, so we can grab all of those that are built and do them. That's when you use them for any kind of ground or kind of movement of emergency vehicles. That happens. Submit them in your data to know what they are reasonably used for and what they're not. New is a new model, and it will be, they are making at the moment that they're talking about making it conditional. And information you can pass back to the dispatchers, things like or some other divided or limited access road in county that you can say this is shutdown. One of organizations that has no where it's shutdown doesn't make as much sense and you longer description of what it is. The 20-character field, you can type whatever you want, and it's helpful and this segment is about this side of the road. And this is the tie into KDOT's linear referencing system. I'm not filling this out. This will out as fills it out. As we go back and forth looking at how your data ties into, it's to help for all different things reporting and in order to maybe help to look at road maintenance going forward. A whole lot of that, certainly way more than I ever kept in my data. And it's different for me to look at, I got to tell you, because we have switched over to it entirely. I'm really, really glad we included this. The level field is something that, well, I mean, pretty only one takes time to look at what it is. Every one of the feature classes has this full table, and then right after it in the document, again, I have the zip code, the agency responsible. She explains what you have to have for all of this stuff. If named, it explains what it is. For example, parity. There's parity on the right side, is either even address on the right side, address on the right side. Yeah. Occasionally, somebody come in and go, my child was born on April 15th, I want my address to either side of the road. so, you can have both on the right side. You can have that one. And you can to put an A or an I for here, and looking at this stuff, there's something in here that you don't understand. One, always remember that you can ask. Two, please ask, because we are working on the next version of the standard, which is not changing any of this stuff, and the last one. So something you notice where you go, I can help with that. You should add it to the text so that it's helpful going forward. Let's see. Here's center line stuff. So power minute. we're going to the geometry of road lines, and what the geometry needs to look like. First of all, road center lines are all public, and as a private road, and that don't have any addressing on them, kind of thing, you're not using it. Right in the back, and not the data you submit. If you have some information like you have all the right in there and you don't want to get rid of them, but you want to know an easy way to get your data in shape to submit without doing all this work you have, you did it all. I would be more than happy to explain to you an easy way to do that. But this is the non-driveway data. That's how the Colorado stuff works. It has to be broken at every intersection with another segment, even if it's an underpass or a overpass. At that intersection with every county, municipal, EME, or emergency service boundary, that's the fire EMS, and which is the EMS layer. I know, by the way, so you split the line. If you choose certain size, what's longer term service. Required to be on the road surface in aerial photography. Even if they do within 10 feet of the center of the road surface on aerial photography. Again, the map foot rate is not right. As it's on the road, we're sure that's good enough. It's probably not going to work. So that's the recommendation. So I move west to high address. By then you start drawing the line of the road address and end at the high address. It's a one-way street and the traffic only goes the other direction. It's not going to travel, it's about direction of address. So let's road here. This is the standard. This whole road that you can screen. This on the screen is too far off. Not only does it look like that, but it is far off because if you plot an address on this side of the road, it's on the wrong side of the road. That's literally needs to be on the road surface. It's not a map. It's not appropriate to locality of an address. Meets the standard. The greatest. It has some angles where it should probably have some curves or get closer to curving, but it does the job. Something on the right of the road on the actual road. By the way, I have zero art skills. Everything I can do is programming and data. So this is my data looks like as I was putting this together. This meets the recommended standard. There are probably still some places that somebody sees that they go, I would do it differently. Just within 10 feet of where they were approved a recommendation. Now, you are getting remediation. You are hiring a vendor to remediate data. And they have to meet any road in your area. And use the field. The second point is we are going to pay somebody to create roads with grant money. We want them to that speed and this but there's no reason an undue burden to have to go back and adjust all of your roads to the standard. You go back and if they don't, you can have a perfect. So we have special cases in geometry I want to show you for road center lines because I've had a lot of questions about them. Scroll. If you lane in the middle, one segment, the only thing, it's still only required to be one segment. If you choose to do that to you. But it's required to be if the divider is physical. Just going to show you that. So divider, my school And one center line goes to the sewer side, and one center line goes to the sewer side. If dividers, you have to have the two segments. If they are not going directly to the problem, they're going to if you use where divided roads are meeting undivided roads, you're going to mess with this kind of construction quite a bit. This is an activity, but most of us don't have a whole lot of that to deal with. There, honestly, there's some issues in here on how to handle it. This is that. Some data come in, but Nina said the road comes back and stuff like that. So that's. And this is the best we could do on traffic circles. I don't know how many of you have them, but I feel bad. No one should ever come up with a traffic circle. I have some instruction in there. And that I want to be showing you is about those elevation values, elevation from and elevation to. Break every road segment at every intersection with another road segment. One of the things that is away from the data is to show a lack of connectivity. So you have a road overpass on another one. Some people have holes the computer. They can't turn from this road onto this road is by having one segment stretch all the way to communicating that to the computer. It's so hot when we're trying to do a big aggregation of statewide data and trying to geocode on the entire statewide set. So instead, we're going to use gray. We're pretending right now like cheap road overpass is 500 items. If it is familiar at all, kind of funny. I don't think either one of them is paid at this point. So you can break that line. This computer will think you can drive the turn right around 500 because it's free because it's right on the maximum price. So we're using elevation values. Elevation values 0, 1. 0 is the lowest road with the ground most of the time. 1 is over. So Deep Road goes over 500 Avenue. 500 Avenue has a start, an end of 0, a start of 0, and an end of 0. This starts at 0 and ends at 1. This one's at 1 and 0. And you're smart enough to know that you cannot turn from a 1 onto a 0 or from a 0 onto a 1. This is an underpass. It's about connectivity. It's not about estimating elevation. So if 500 Avenue underpasses under road, it still looks exactly like this is road at I-70. She overpasses I-70. I-70 is running all the way through. She road to 1 here. From the actual bridge over the middle. And then 0 down here. You can't ever turn from that overpass to I-70 from I-70 on to that. Very, very for me, everything out at 0 and then went back and grabbed the I-70 real area, real passes that we had. That yes. Counts as an underpass. That I did have some people ask what about when you get like really piled up streets, which of course most of us do not have to deal with. But I did quite the research when I was first looking at trying to solve this little dilemma, what would be the cleanest recommendation. And that in all of the places that are making use of this that I can find reference to in talking about policies, only the city of LA has had to go up to the number 4. Vast majority of data, including everything within marketing and everything, you can't know of one group. So I also have this question come up, so I want to show it right quick. What happens if the road on the north side are off of an old road name, and the road on the south side are address off of one? Or there's first, if this guy and this guy just never changed the address to the road name, nobody ever made it. It happens, but if it does, this road alias if you want to. This is this may also be what you have to do because the addresses, maybe it was 1800 block and turns out on the corner block of land or something like that. It's very rare circumstance that I have a couple of people ask. That's how you do that. Here for what to do with address ramps, service drives, that kind of thing. And there's a story right at the end of all of the requirements with income documents requirements from. Most of them, as I said, come from me. Then the address points. Let me go to the presentation for just a minute. Sure. We actually have an example just like that, so I get for there. Just on road sign review, kind of know for those, the special cases of geometry are in the model, so you're welcome to go look at it. Keep into that summary of standards for just a quick down on what you've got to do. Hit the road alias table because it's actually a very, very quick thing. The road table is for other names for a road. The one and the one that we care about in terms of the standards are the ones that are also highway. Highway 15, Kansas Highway 15, as it runs, goes in and out of the city of Abilene, and while it is inside the city of Abilene, and for a small area outside the city of Abilene on both sides, by Abilene. We can have some method of saying that is still Highway 15. That's really a stable issue. There are other things you can put in there, but the one that is required within the standard is all of those segments, but more having in the road alias table instead of Highway 15. That's what you're trying to track. It's a really easy thing to just straight up and down. The Darrington, which is the southern part of the Highway 15, is double time in the city of Darrington. South River Valley. So it's really important that we get all of those segments or you would be able to track it through appropriately. Table for any other common or uncommon name, and then recently, and by recently I mean in the last probably 50 years, changed to 911 address and somebody is still using the old road. They're doing whatever, and they're still calling it instead of the corner of 1700 or whatever. The table is not that's what is best for your agency. Maybe you want to do right away, or maybe it's a project you want to put off ongoing. It's really neat for projects or the state federal highway designation. Have very specific way to present that. And this is the manual. So I go in and take a look. the segments of the height have to be testing for it in the QA. Got that right? The sites with the Scott Street addresses. Points for occupancy, 1 point for apartment, 1 point for a trailer court, 1 point for store of a mall. I'm trying to get campsite. If you've got campsites all the way around, just having 1 point for the way not going to help emergency get through. So whether or not your campsite points is up to you to understand your local situation. The point to be on the structure or site they recommend. This was kind of a tough decision that made. We had some good discussions in the subcommittee and some good dictating in the subcommittee about it. Because we make it on the access system in the driveway. Most of us in rural areas address on the driveway. That's when we get to it. But finding an address is about where to is one coordinate of the address. Where to go in an emergency to get it. That was fun. Two, remember I said we did a survey at CSAP to find out how they handle address points? What is about a third of them? So, them on structure. And that's when we did their own thing. Decision we made, we would take that. He does more work, he does less work, what is easier, about okay, how data is useful as possible. And we make the data as useful as we possibly can, is the address point sits on the truck. And maintain the point on the driveway, only 10. So you're able to maintain 2 points per address, two, one on the driveway and one on the house. Those within the address point table. And there is a primary address, the one structure, ordinary access address, the one right. And what we'll do is when you turn your data in for NG911 for that database, we'll do the secondary structure or secondary access addresses in that data. That way you can keep them both if you want to, if you're only required to have them. You have to keep all right in mind. And so my illustration here, this is not county. In fact, I think it's in this reason, so somebody recognize it. The clearest image I could find of what I was trying to illustrate is that, okay, I'm talking about. I'm saying how my county is enforcement has jurisdiction. There we go. But when I go into county B, yeah, so we know that the center line that road in county B. We have to solve between county A and county B. Who should get the 911? The fire department goes. The enforcement eventually gets. That's all what NG911 determines. What determines if you click here, the county. If you put it here, the phone rate is county. That's NG911 determines. And it doesn't matter who responds. It doesn't matter if the phone rings at county A, and they transfer the call immediately to county B. Or the phone rings at county B, and they put county A on the line for the same. None of that. What matters where is the phone? That's your termination. If them should ring in county A, point, oh, that's the garage. You put and anyway, report is going to return that you have an address that you have to go to return. And I'll explain that process in a few minutes. The review committee look at it and go, well, of course they do. It's a job to determine where those things happen. Our job to determine where they're County B, and the phone should bring you to County B. You need this address point, but you don't have to go there. It's a so you point as close as you reasonably can to the building while still being in your county. Because if you put the point over here, you don't want it. So clear to the building as possible. We'll still meet our desired requirement of having that next slide as close as possible to the location we're going to end up at the end. And if a driveway point right here, you're certainly welcome to. The question of whenever you deal with these board issues, it's not who goes. This is command. It's the polygon that represents the geographic area for which your data is authoritative. All the cities as it's done in Canada. And if you have a city PSAP lead by your jurisdiction, and they are using to do their data, you have to pull, you are the county around them, you have to pull their data out before you submit it, and you're authoritative for that. So you have to get together and of the exact same data coming in, we have it from the person that's authoritative. Easier than the address points and everything. The existing service boundaries, these represent the service areas for the different agencies. You have to have one for law enforcement, fire, EMS, and anywhere from the boundary and our first city boundary. But to have it in there. You also have others. First responders, rescue units, special tactical units, records of the county, east and west. You want to maintain those so that eventually that information will be transmitted directly through the system to your dispatchers. You want to do that too. You'll require to have the top four. You should do those. I don't know if I do this in the slide later. If I do, I apologize. But you used to do those in 4 separate layers or one combined layer. Whatever your current thing is works just fine. And then zones are actually that mean name for the polygons that represent your ESNs. Many of us have different polygons to begin with, so this is something we're going to be creating going forward. But it would be the geometric union of law, fire, and EMS. Good. We've got a couple of questions here today about ESNs, because ESNs aren't even a lot of 911 centers worry about. 911 centers use ESN off of that MSAG record exclusively. The software also determines that the fire ESN for them. Don't use that number at all. If they're not using it, you're not going to drive, you don't know that there's a mistake in it. They do way off. Sometimes the response really gets. Get a hold of your phone company, whoever is handling whoever your MSAG holder is, and communicate with them about the ESN. It may be remembered it's not one. You have a different situation, and you communicate with them, and they say, "Oh, that would be a whole lot of trouble," or maybe you need new ESNs, and it's going to take some time to get that. All of it is really dependent on the individual situation, and asking if you have to see that the data is submitted to appropriately represent what is with your law or your EMS. So, why we put this well over everything? It's in the data, everything's in there. All tag entries within the MSAG community and that kind of thing. And the D layer itself will eventually be archived. They are still very important today. One of the first things in NG911 we have to do is the E911 process. Running the E911 process, we still have to get one, still have boundaries, still what those numbers are, the more emergency service agencies can tolerate. They're only going to let us be at most 4 things in that database for the company. We have 10 layers, 12 layers if you need to within NG911. So get all of those done, whatever you feel appropriate for the county, but this stuff is still going to have to be maintained until we're no longer doing selective routers to make calls. So emergency service boundary, everyone must completely fill your emergency boundary with no gaps overlap. Enforcement, when you put all the pieces of your law enforcement together, they have to be exactly the same as your authoritative boundary. You need to for every square land your authoritative boundary, what the law enforcement is, what the fire is, what the ES is, and the one and only one agency area like we do in the Mississippi Valley. We have over this awesome block that goes right through the middle of Valley. So the south part of Valley, actually 2 fire departments. The city and rural fire department nearby Grant Township works calls to every single fire. We set up sets of pagers for every single fire. That I need a call on that area. Because in the north part of Valley, the Valley Fire Department, the fire Valley, Grant Township, and the fire is Valley / Grant Township. I go all the way down to the last code because the 911 system will be able to interpret that. I went on and have both of those things in there. When you do the format structure of the ESC layer, you'll solve the areas. Open way for it to do whatever is appropriate for you, whatever makes sense to you and your agency. We're only fire department, and we're going to fire department to open on structure, whatever you want to put in. Get all excited. But you do follow. The emergency service zone layer has to complete the boundary. Even you aren't sure what the percent is in the area, you'll have to put it in there. I even had somebody ask, and I do understand how they got the situation, but I'm taking them at their word. They said they had an area that was not having the land is on or what the deal is. You guys know. You have to account for every day. And it's great. You can't go where the boundary is. So if your fire department goes in 3 counties around you, which is just what happens within that authoritative polygon of yours. The fire department responds about where your data is. So you have to have a polygon to the fire department. Before this remediation, I'm going to take the template to the database just a little bit. The template to your databases. Like I was saying earlier, when we started this project, we really didn't have a good idea. I'm going to show it to you that way. We really didn't have like a great idea of details of everything. We had this wonderful we had to flesh a lot of details out. And those details was the data model, and it was sitting around and going, okay, well, we've got this data model, and we put it in the document. But what we know is for somebody else to build. There's a lot of detail in it. It's got a lot of moving parts. It's a lot easier if we could just give everybody a container that the data in. That has all those. That is it. Temp databases are available out on the DAS website and on the Coordinating Council website. Empty when they are there. I believe that this one has data. This is the one I used for a training video recently. Maybe not. But data, there is one for people who use State Plain Kansas North and one for people who use State Plain Kansas South. They have all the fields already sent to them. Where there's a domain, it is already assigned. So go in to edit the data instead of typing it in, you can drop down of the valid selections. The typing is already built, which means all of those rules about what can intersect and what can't and how things have to overlay each other. The rules are already built in, so you have a method of testing those things. We're fixing them, testing again. There's this table in here, and it already has what is called a relationship class built between it and the road center line. So in ARC, the create functionality is automatic. If you identify on the road, you see all of the road aliases and that. So it's pre-built for you. We would really like you to submit your data for QA in this format. Makes it easier for you to be sure you've done everything if you're doing it locally. If you have a vendor doing it, as far as I know, they're all using it. So that's it that it's going to come back to you in, and we will support this format going forward. If it's needed, we will rip and send it out to you, because your data can be changed without you having to go in and do work. If something happens within the standard and things are either different or we build tools for it, with this data format, we guarantee it. The idea here is, using template geodatabases, we can give you a lot more help than you can do. Like I said, this is not, let me pull a table here. I don't keep my data. I haven't had to change. This is useful. I also had some fields that I had to add to the end data, and I don't have any because I was using this for training. But we have about 6 more fields than are in this. You didn't know what's in there, or what's that one in there. So those are actually powered to the end data and local. It can still do its job in all of the systems that it was working in before. I recommend that you take a look at using these templates or databases because our videos and about to be free online support templates. One of them is to upload your data into it, just kind of through what the database is and how your data in it from wherever it is now. Then it's about all of the domains and the attributes that are in there, just kind of giving you some suggestions on ways you can link up and set out. Especially if you're adding new features, your data's come back from remediation and you're starting to make these videos can help you out. And the third, which is still going through a QA process right now, is about using the topology. The version of topology and how to use it to make sure your data is in proper alignment. We're really going to do our best to support this in every way we can. Continue to support you however you're keeping your data, but it'll be easier for us to learn. Important to know that originally, my method is originally, I put those together really fast, and I missed some things. There was a typo there, so I really got out of line. It's a good idea to check and see that you have the most recent one, because I typoed a couple of the field names and a couple of blanks. I missed a couple of rules first time around, so there are more rules in there now than there were in the original version. Topology rules. So a full process of impact remediation. Serves a great explanation of what the impact is. A part of the analysis includes a comparison between the Centerline file and the impact of the jurisdiction. I talked about these reports that will come back from that. All road names that don't exist in the impact, all of the road names that are impact that don't exist in your Centerline, and then this is where the ranges don't fit together right. Those are that, and if you get a remediation vendor, they produce specially formatted spreadsheets with changes to be made to your impact. They will be changes. That's another thing, only somebody at your agency can do that one. And two, the grant money is just not there to be paying consult fees to be made and bring into that system. So this is a spreadsheet of things that need to be made, and then you'll need to go in and change them. AP, if that is your company, I completed and you recently noticed that there's inside training out there. Not because they came up with a little specialized tool for Kansas customers based off the idea of putting changes in the spreadsheet. It was a little more willing to support in some ways. It said basically if you have that spreadsheet, there's 120 changes on it, just send it to it. So, essentially, customers not no, it's a great process of the insight that they made. You can turn control when they happen. Changes, but they don't do that in the database. The phone company approves them and moves forward. So again, the only part of this project that is going to be handled for you and that is going to be checked on is after creating the spreadsheet. We want you to go in and fix that data. You need to go in and fix that data. It's very easy to write out and leave by the wayside. But here's what happens. Right. All of us, we're all landline folks, all powers, from the way back there in the county, are saturated. Their report that is going to be highlighted through all the places where your Centerline and that impact do not match. That our report is correct. It is all every landline phone that when you switch and select the route to NG911, will no longer come to your staff about that. There's a company is not going to do much to go out and fix it. And they're only going to be broken, they're quickly going to turn it back. And a huge method is much more. Right now, you'll get a spreadsheet that helps you figure out how to do it. Right now, we understand we're doing this project, and they're willing to help us with the amount of changes that they make out of this. So we're not QAing on this and not going to go, hey, have you done it yet? Hey, have you done it yet? It's really important to go and do it. It makes your life a lot easier. So, now I get something to remediation. When the whole process is one of the things that you do, like the vendors we want more vendors to get this and gap analysis. And if you choose to go with a vendor, choose to go with grant-funded remediation, they will this the road alias, address point, authoritative boundaries, all ESVs that you want done, require that any others that you have the data for, and one ESV, the leaves holding until those finish, because they are required to make NG911 work, and are not. Make sure we have enough money to do all of these all the way across the state. We'll begin working on these. And if someone says, why not do them? The Department of Fire Department, that boundary will be ESPs and it will be done. But cities out there that have no emergency services at any time, they have anything unique about them in terms of 911. Your census got to find all of the records that may or may not have been appropriately filed by the city in the past, as in annexations and things like that. Very sensitive to consider. So if you don't have those layers, or if you're way out of date, your $3 to be able to fit is cut off unless they impact on your future. So that boundary is down here. If you have that data, you're welcome to submit it as a testing QA, make sure everything is good to go. The information vendor will give you a proper format for NG911, and you'll be good. But if you don't have that at all, you'll know that will give us the grant funding are the ones that have couple of what grant money will pay for it is to correct all of the phase 1 data layers, all the reading, any features needed to complete the data layers, including address point and that kind of thing, creation of the change reports. Oh, sorry. Same thing. You just come up with some basic addresses. Using addresses for testing. This is an indicator maybe it's coming in address points and maybe missing where your center lines that maybe should be there and aren't. Not even if anybody wants to do. Center lines for driveways and private roads that don't have an address or will not have any address is more appropriate. Each outside your authoritative boundary. Traverse time for populating national systems out. The vendor to go out and find out if or the speed or anything like that. So that's information you can't get on the grant. And the insight. These two websites, you can set the document group where you have your databases that I talked about, that kind of thing. I'm going to be available online. These presentations will be available online, but you won't be able to get those that's the website you'd like to go to. So this is the website. If anyone is important. Copy that, and I am going to move on to talk just a little bit about the QA process and about maintenance. I would say the same thing about the coordinating council site, but it's a little harder to navigate. I always point people to DAS, and I know that sometimes Scott here today will go, well, the coordinating council site has it too, and I'm like, yeah, but I can't find it. A little, I mean, you can search for it and find it, and this page is an awesome page. But the DAS site is really improved now. Really briefly about the QA process. As you get your gap analysis, you put that in. Someone who you remediation locally or one of the remediation vendors. I consider a vendor, no matter how skilled you are. You don't do it for yourself. There are a whole lot of people that are capable of it. You're doing it well. It's really kind of that's the process for us to get our address over there. And no amount of work, it's all kinds of time. Cleaning out some of the fields, no amount of work. Building polygons. Because at our county, the DSNs are not relying on that dispatchers, like I was saying earlier. Going into the phone company records is for. Listen to the real response area. So building always on top. That's where clean up that section, clean up at the phone company, clean up the records. It's the easiest thing in the world, and we are by no means done. I wanted to be able to stand up here and answer questions honestly about his life to do it locally, because I don't know how. So I tortured my technician and he did it good. He moved out here at 20. Anyway, we're certainly not done. We are surprised with our data a few weeks ago for gap analysis. And it's to get it to that point that I'm still expecting that this is done when the report comes back. So this decision, skills, time, and passion to lead it locally with members, and stop getting remediated and remediation happens. Then they submitted remediation is finished, it's finished. Submitted to AOS. Remediation doesn't know that. AOS only tests on it, does to talk about what they were, and the results of those tests in a report run to what we call the Data Review Committee. If you have a committee name, because there's other things for our committee to do. I don't want everybody else to do this, so we'll give a small The Data Review Committee is myself, it's Eileen, it's Mark Wayne, and Steve Shaw, and we will look at the report. We have done this on a couple already. And there may be something in the report where AOS says, oh, there's gaps in the road and didn't look right. So we can mark them. And we have so just because something didn't actually pass the test that AOS does, doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that has to be fixed. Sometimes things happen within our data. Sometimes, we have cities strangely, and we don't have a really good way to make this data model we're working with fit the world. And your job is that review committee to take a look at the stuff and see where that's happened. And to go, okay, yeah, that was fine. Okay. That was fine, but you probably ought to look at it. Or what? So this report, ready to go. We get all of the opinions of the report results on there. And that report goes back to the remediation vendor or the local agency. And the first time you receive the narrative report, a result report, I should say, where all the local agencies is, we'll copy through it. So we'll go to the other, and then we'll do that one. The first time we'll go through the report from site. If you want to sit through it again, if you disagree or if you want to go over it. Go through it point by point. Maybe it's yay, everything is fine, there was nothing to do. Thank you for compliance. We will give you information about how my maintenance works, and you receive that information that we contact and going forward. It's not fine, there's still some things that need to be addressed. Very, very clearly labeled on the report, that clearly could possibly be needed. I think I'll just went through this. I don't know if we can do any better than we have at identifying on half the things. Yeah. There you go. But the word is very clear. It doesn't just say some of your roads are going to say this exact road segment with this ID number. This is what we think is wrong with it. And if you disagree, you can just say, no, it isn't. That's the way it's supposed to be. And then you said, no, it isn't. That's the way it's supposed to be. So when we start with this state database possession, I know it isn't their standard, but the local data steward said it was right. They're the authority on that data. And really all we're asking for is to do this. We're going to fix what you can comment on what doesn't need to be fixed, and one value and go back to GIS. Because GIS, they will check those things that were identified as problems, not the first time, but by GIS. They'll check those things that are identified as needing to review, action of comments, and the things that will require correction. Come in. Now remember, when you go through the QA process, if you have a problem with your polygons, because all the slip and polygons are, you have to move them to correct, and you have to move them to correct, and so you recheck them back. We talk QA work. When you're close to done, you can say, if you are in, once you are done with the QA process. Then ongoing maintenance. This is easy. You have that is working here that you're contracted personally as often. But from this forward, it is on you to maintain data and keep it up to date. Now, you will not be resubmitting changes to the data on an ongoing basis because we don't have that data aggregation process figured out yet. As soon as we do, we'll be able to submit changes as often as you have changes to make the data. I encourage you should, even if it's going to be a pain on the front end, so it is sensitive to your database, and you have to keep sending that data. You have to keep sending those updates. Having to fight with it and get it in the appropriate format every time because you totally put it in the format and it's different. If you can't modify this to what you need, you're not going to get that. Finally, I'm trying to go through my head and make sure I mentioned everything. The final thing that I wanted to make sure I mentioned to you is that our support talked about us going forward training. And I know some of you are already signed up for first ongoing maintenance training. We put out a note about it August 27th, or it will be August 27th, in which all the classes full. There were other ones not in the CAM conference, but immediately before CAM conference in Manhattan in October. Sign up will open soon, and we'll send out another email. If you might get notice of that first class, if you want notice of those classes going forward, make sure that you get them on email or Mark or Cheryl. There's a lot of here from the committee. Somebody from the committee, your email address, so we can make sure you get on the list. And you can find them in the training in this place. They are free after the come, and the August is going to be the first of at least 3 that we're going to hold like that. It's going to be about not just me up here talking about the data model, but actually using our some of the ways, some of the things that I have found to make data maintenance a little easier within the help, and answering your questions about more data that you run through the process. If you have any weird or unusual circumstances that you want to discuss, please drop an email or give a call now, or in the class, you're welcome to bring it up and we can demonstrate. One thing that we're trying to do, we're in the process of doing it right now, is record everything we can that we doing. So if you be here or you were here, you don't remember what was said, and you don't want to find the video of the section that you're interested in. These classes will be recorded as well, but I'm very good at coming in person to at least one. One, and that's helpful, but it's helpful with having an interaction and being able to ask questions. So a whole lot really fast. I made plenty of time for them. So are there other questions? Yeah. Thank you very much. Video databases would request our GIS standard or advanced license to be able to data. The reason is because Esri limits the ability to edit poly data, GIS basic license. There are some really ugly workarounds. Need that topology, and you need to be able to validate that topology. Now, I confirmed with Roger, and he has confirmed for the council that purchase of a license of Azure software or the upgrade of the existing basic license is viable use of 911 funds at your station. I agree. But I promise it's a valid use of the money. So this is one place, since those funds are unbudgeted, this year sometime for people to be able to make a quick purchase on that and examine it. It doesn't allow them to use, they understand the word new understand what the requirements are. So yeah, that license model doesn't require it. If you remember the old terminology, our you won't work, or the companies were built in 10-2-1, and so you need to be in, I think you need to be in 10-1, Service Pack 1 or higher to use them. So if you haven't been updating your software, you will have to make use of them. You know, I see it 10-2, but yeah, GIS standard desktop license at 10-2. As you pass software, right, this is just for editing the GIS data that I'm talking about. New world software. You just have to take the data and reformat. Later versions of ARC, you can use to save things in the older format. Make sure that you can get your email address before you leave, and I think ensure that I know what I'm talking about here. I'm pretty sure I know what I'm talking about here because I've had to do it for some of the applications we have. I'll make sure the person who did it is. Yes, sir. Software? License the desktop software, yes. Yes, they are. Yeah, but Randall's sitting here, Scott has approved this, he has made sure of it, and it's absolutely a reasonable use. And the other question that has come up before, and we've heard this one as well, is that has to sit in 911. For the GIS person, lives in the attorney's office, but they're the ones that are maintaining the data, it's fine that upgrade sits in the attorney's office. It doesn't have to sit in 911. That's used for 911. It does have to live in that room. We will get Scott does that. I think we can do it. So, thinking if anyone online has a question, you're welcome to type one out. I know we're having a heck of a time hearing you with this setup, but you're welcome to type a question out. So, questions? I am.
The names.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'll check it and give you a call.
Like we had to say, take advantage of the fact that the council is looking to help you. We're done funding the vendors, they just say that we needed for the advantage of that. I don't know how long that opportunity will be running. So much money and then the money's gone, the money's gone. The responsibility of one end to come back and use it. That's still. And here, people, you'll want to write this down. It's really important. I tried to categorize them, so if you have a question about anything in particular, I call that number, but whole number of Scottish. That means the fault of Scott definition. That's why he's not. He loves that because he loves working with you guys. He loves touching base with the people that do this day in and day out. So he's kind of your default home, but there are lots of other people you can get a hold of and call. So please write numbers and take advantage of it. We have a lot of questions, and we have a lot of people. There are probably over 50 people dedicated to this project. So, if you're serious about it, here the people can help you. And a big thank you so much for we project without you. Thanks for spending the day with us, and look forward to seeing you soon. I don't have anything else to do. And we'll get to it.